everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and this is Patron Hangout number 94. I want to say hello to everybody who is in the chat room. Let's see who's here. Lila's here. Michaela is here. Who's Sarah's here. Benny is here from Denmark. Hey, Benny's back. That's so awesome. Let's see. Lila Williams. Wait a minute. How many Lilas do we have? I'm getting confused now. Oh, sorry. Lisa S is here. I'm starting off well here. I'm getting names confused. Hello, everybody. Everybody. You can see how this is going to go tonight. Okay. Anyway, welcome everybody. And Kelly's here too. Anybody who's in the chat room. I had some electronic problems. Not my fault. The electricity went off twice in preparation for the show. And so there's some issue with the electric lines. And so I want to warn you all, since I've been in a frantic mode, if I just completely vanish, I will send you a message to your Patreon account, and we'll come back in 10 minutes when the electricity goes back up. And then I'll have to edit this show, which I hate doing. But yeah. Anyway, if you'd like to be in the chat room, please do click on the link below for Patreon. And you can join Patreon, and you can be in all the chat rooms for the live shows. There are 4 live hangouts, which are just fun things where I talk about the news and anything anybody wants me to talk about. And there's 4 live shows that are cases every week that I do, usually on the weekend. And this weekend coming up, in case you're wondering what I'm going to do this weekend, I am going to do The Mystery of the Freeway Phantom. This has gotten really popular recently, and there's a whole new podcast out called Tantamount, and I'm going to put all the links. I'll send the links over to the Patreon people before the show, and then if you come to my public after my shows, after the Patreon live shows happen, then everything is public. All my videos are public, so everyone can see the videos. But please do subscribe and get notice of my videos. Please do subscribe and like the videos. But in case you're wondering why I have a printout form instead of a book, I was actually handed these printouts from Wilma Harper. And she is the woman who wrote this book. And you can't get it anyplace anymore. She wrote this many, many years ago. I met her in the 90s. And we had a really wonderful conversation at her home about how the freeway phantom was still out there and never been arrested and convicted. And 6 African-American girls were murdered, and nothing seemed to happen, in her opinion. And so she put together a whole community outreach, working with the police and getting information out to the community. And she essentially self-pubbed this book before Amazon would let you self-pub. So let me put it this way. I don't even know where you could have gotten this book, except maybe if you're in a community center. But she gave this whole printout to me. So I'll be discussing what she has to say, as well as the actual published book that is on Amazon, not hers, another person's, and what's in the podcast. But I feel very privileged to have met Wilma Harper. She is the aunt of one of the girls. I met her when she was in her 80s, and she was an amazing lady. So that's felt close to my heart, this particular case, the Freeway Phantom, and of course happened in my neighborhood, which was DC and Prince George's County, Maryland. So hope you join me on the weekend for that. That should be a really interesting show. So I'm just checking in on your comments here. In case you're wondering about the change of scenery behind me, I usually have this elephant head, which I try to keep out of the picture because its trunk comes in. So I decided to replace it with one of my charcoal drawings, which you see is kind of apropos for a show on homicide. And I always like this painting, but this charcoal drawing, but people are scared of it apparently. So I don't usually hang it in my house in a noticeable place. But my favorite thing about the particular charcoal drawing is this. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, this. Those are his teeth. I think those are pretty cool teeth. I spent hours and hours and hours drawing those teeth. So, little sideline. So anyway, so that's the background today. So anyway, Well, thank you, Sarah. It's badass. I appreciate that. No, no, I'm not a Grateful Dead fan. I'm not a fan of rock music at all, or heavy metal or whatever it is. Never been a fan. I've always been a soul R&B person. But no, and I don't have satanic things rolling around in my head. This was simply this was a skull that was sitting in an art class. And so there it was to draw. So I drew it. So that's why. It's quite spooky. Yeah, well, it does creep people out. And they say, why do you have that on your wall? But I think now it fits the topic, right? So I don't know if I'll keep it on the show, but I just thought I'd change things up a little bit. All right. So those are just my fun moments here. Let's go to the news. All right. Oh, wait. Before I go to the news, this really amused me. I saw this article. And since you're all here watching my shows, pay attention to this. Psychologist warns of major red flags if you enjoy true crime documentaries. That would be you guys. Why are you watching shows about true crime? And especially the psychologist says, why are you watching them before you go to sleep at night? And you say, because it relaxes you. So according to this psychologist, I'm always amused by some psychologist concepts, that you watch true crime stuff because in your life, you've had such, your lives have been growing up full of anxiety and stress, and that's normal for you. And so for you to watch something peaceful and quiet is too boring. So therefore, you must watch violence and murder to feel peaceful. I'm like, really? Okay. Well, how many of you agree with that? I can ask you guys if you agree with it or not. Anxiety and stress are normal too. That is true. So, what was this one? Should we guess some of the red flags? The red flags, you're watching this. That's it. You're watching this stuff. What? Wait a minute. Oh, Lila says, I disagree. Lauren says, I read an article about how millennials are due to 9/11. Well, then the next generation is screwed because of COVID. So, it's one of these things. I think any generation you grew up in, you've got your stresses, your anxieties, you've got the way you personally deal with things. And of course, what she's really pointing out, I think, is family issues. Let me see if I can I find out where I put this thing. I just thought it was just quite amusing. Oh, here we go. Just to see what she says, and it's just, if you go on the internet, literally you can find anybody saying anything, and so the validity of anything that you read is always questionable. And this particular person, it says, in recent years, the popularity of true crime documentaries has absolutely soared. But now psychologists are warning that watching them to relax is a huge red flag. So it says that watching them in order to fall asleep, says one expert. And you can always find the one expert. That it could be a sign of the harmful ways a person processes trauma. Dr. Thurna Bryan, whoever the heck Dr. Thurna Bryan is. And I'm not throwing shade on Dr. Thurna Bryan. I just don't know who the heck Thurna Bryan is. Explained how watching true crime for comfort, because a trauma feels familiar, it's a sign that you may benefit from counseling. Oh, that's the point I wanted to make. All of you need counseling. You all need to go into therapy, or you wouldn't be watching this before you go to sleep tonight. Sorry. Okay, speaking on the Mel Robbins podcast, because that does give you validity. Whoever the heck Mel Robbins is, I don't know either. Dr. Bryan said, if your idea of relaxing before you go to bed is to watch 3 episodes of Law and Order, then I would encourage you to think about why trauma is relaxing to you. That's what it is. Harm, crime, violation, attacks, and that's what is going to soothe me into my bedtime. So she explains that people often discuss their love of true crime in therapy with her, and argued many people find it normal and familiar. She went on, some of us grew up in high stress situations, so people mistake peace for boring, and it's like to come home to yourself. You have to lean into discomfort because it's going to feel unfamiliar. Okay. Yeah, okay. That's why I don't get therapy. Oh, sometimes you can spend an awful lot of time trying to diagnose yourself and have somebody else diagnose you when, quite frankly, maybe it's not necessary. And people watch true crime for many, many reasons. I personally do not watch a lot of the violent shows. I don't particularly like them, but I do watch Death in Paradise. I do like the original Hawaii Five-0. I'm not a huge true crime viewer, and I'm not a big true crime book person. I really don't. I read things for research purposes. It's not really my thing. But I am watching right now to practice my Spanish. La Reina de la Sur. La Sur? Is that how it goes? Queen of the South. And they keep killing everybody there because she's part of a narco ring. So, what can I say? And I go to sleep perfectly fine at night and I wake up perfectly fine in the morning. So I would say, if you can sleep at night, no matter what you watch, bully for you. It's not hurting you. I don't understand why she thinks if it makes you feel good, now you need therapy. Just kind of crazy stuff. Lord. What would feel unfamiliar? Happiness, calmness, peace, beauty. That's all unfamiliar. So therefore, in order to feel comforted, you have to watch violence. That's kind of psychobabble to me. I think it's interesting. Lauren says, that's an interesting theory that person has about true crime watching. I never thought about it that way. I find it hard to stop with true crime because it's challenging and interesting. Maybe you find it fascinating how things work. How I find police procedurals interesting. I'm interested in the solving of the crime. I don't really care about why people do it so much. I'm interested in how it's solved and how we can prevent it. Those are my two things. But I guess I need therapy. Estoy aquí. ¿Dónde das corazón? Das corazón. Where is the heart? Whose heart? But I'm working on my Spanish, so there's a lot of telenovelas that come out of Mexico and Colombia, and they all have to do with cartels. So what can I say? Oh dear. Now I'm might have to psychoanalyze you, Lauren. It's hard to go back to watching something else now. Maybe you're now overstimulated and everything else is boring. So maybe that therapy will be for you. Okay, anyway, I just thought that was amusing. So anyway, I want to move on to Bryan Kohberger. Not so much about the supposedly this huge bombshell. I love how they use bombshell. Bombshell breaking news. What is it? That his DNA was found on the sheath at the scene. Prior to that, they had gotten familial DNA, and supposedly the guy who left the sheath had to be the son of one of those Kohbergers, which, considering there's not a ton of them rolling around that area in Idaho, I'm going to say it's Bryan Kohberger. But that may not be enough when the defense comes in. So now they have actual solid DNA evidence. And what they have is, I believe it's STR. Hold on a second. Let me locate it here. Okay. This one says here, Bryan Kohberger's DNA matches sample from knife sheath. That was near the victim, Maddie Morgan. They explained how they found a statistical match. A traditional SDR DNA comparison was done between the SDR profile found on the K-bar knife sheath, not on the knife because it wasn't there, K-bar knife sheath, and the defendant's DNA. Prosecutors revealed in court findings this week, or filings this week. The comparison shows a statistical match. And the statistical match is, let's see if they say, it's not, okay, where is I'm looking for the numbers on the statistical match. It was, this SDR profile is at least 5.37 octillion times. I have never heard octillion. when they're talking about DNA. That's the first time I've heard octillion. Octillion times more likely to be seen if the defendant is the source than if an unrelated individual randomly selected from the general population is the source. Okay, so theoretically, he's cooked, all right? But what I found amusing was underneath this article, people had written things in. And this is why I'm always concerned about jury trials when you're using private citizens, who are just picked out of the public, because you might get these people. Here's one, for example. This guy says, let's see, Taiwanowhen, I don't know how you pronounce his name. There was no DNA found anywhere on the knife sheath other than the button. Impossible unless the sheath had been first wiped completely clean and then the DNA planted upon the button. And this is a guy named Zigzag Wanderer replies, nonsense. The DNA was likely from a cut on his hand. It was on the button because that's what he touched to open the sheath. So here you have what the defense might use and what people on a jury might fall for, that it was planted. In other words, barring having a sheath full of his blood, like poured all over it, the concept that there's this tiny little dot means that somebody took a test tube and implanted it. Can that ever happen? Because they claim that's what happened in, the Stephen Avery case too. They claim this all the time, that evidence is planted. I don't find that to be true I'm trying to think of a case that I even believed it could be true. What I do find can be true is that there can be claims of a DNA match made when that DNA match doesn't have to be presented in court. So if you get the guy to take the plea deal, then you can claim there's a DNA match and you don't have to prove it. That I believe that it can happen. And that's just basically, if you're not going to have to actually show the DNA match and enter it into evidence and the public eye, well, you can pretty much say what you want to say matches. In a case where theoretically this is going to court, I'm going to say they probably have DNA from Kohberger or someone who would be, what is it again? 5.37 octillion times more likely. All right, and here's another interesting one. Somebody said, statistical match, that's not a true match. And statistical matches can and have been wrong. Good luck with that. Okay, all right. Let me talk about statistical matches. If you wanted to say there could be one other person in the world that had that same DNA, you would also have to believe that that person was there in that location in Idaho at that time. Not in Belgium, not in China, not someplace else in the world, but actually right there. So when you're presenting DNA in a case, when you're looking at DNA, if it's good DNA and not something that is possibly is corrupted somehow, it was handled improperly, so therefore it might be compromised. There's a lot of reasons you can have DNA that isn't actually the proper DNA. But in this case, it's pretty obvious that's probably his DNA, and that it's not going to be switched up with anybody else's. Sometimes when you look at a case and a person, turns out there's this DNA match to some guy, and the guy doesn't even live there, right? I think that happened recently. I talked about the lawyer who lived in New Jersey, and he was connected to crimes that were like 20 years old in, where was it? Boston. It was in Boston, to a series of rapes. Well, it turned out he lived in Boston at the time of the series of rapes, and he was in that exact location at the time of the series of rapes. So you've got confirmation to go along with the DNA. Now, if you couldn't prove the guy was ever in town when that happened, then it gets questionable. And by the way, when you do STR testing, PCR testing, RFLP, which I used to do, which required a lot, that was earlier on testing, required a lot more blood than the testing they do today. Those are pretty good because they're actually based on semen blood, saliva, something that's liquid form. Touch DNA, that's a whole nother matter. So touch DNA is really questionable because it can go from object to object and float through the air. And you can have somebody who's their DNA is at a scene which they never were at. That gets more tricky. But this, I'm going to say, pretty good stuff. Pretty good stuff. So we'll see what the defense comes up to try to say that, well, Michaela, DNA may not be the smoking gun, but it's the totality of the evidence. Well, you know, I love the term totality of the evidence. I say this constantly. It is always the totality of the evidence. But let me tell you, with today's juries, you better have DNA or video, or they don't believe anything. So thank God that they've got DNA. Thank God. Because I swear they could get in there and they could say, oh, his car wasn't really there, and he this and he that. And they could have 20 other items of circumstantial evidence. But without the video or DNA, they're like, well, it could have been somebody else. So these days, you need one of those two smoking guns. You really do. It's quite sad. And as far as the rest of the information, I don't know what else was there. So, and I'm not going to get into all that evidence. That'll show up in the trial. But are there even an octillion people in the world? Okay, I'm trying to figure out what octillion is. Is it? I don't know what it is. 8 something. 800 billion? 8 billion? I don't even know what that means. Yeah, I have no clue. So maybe it includes also the planet of Mars, which they haven't found any people on, but you never know. Yeah. So that's what I would say about Bryan Kohberger. We'll have to wait and see about more information on that. Now let's go to what's her name? Kouri Richins, I believe is her name. She's the one who is being prosecuted for the murder of her husband. She essentially poisoned him, OD'd him, and then she wrote, after he died, she wrote this book about children and grieving, and people are like, oh my God, that's a great book. She had three children, and they're all like, oh, that's so sweet and wonderful. We're helping your children grieve after she murdered their father. But they didn't know that at the time, so they thought it was a great book. And it may have been a great book. Psychopaths can write really good books. And I'm going to say she may be one. All right, but there's 2 things that are coming up right now. One is, and I point this out quite often. Let's see, where is it? The problem of people, when they look at your search history on Google, so many times people get caught through the search history. What did she search on Google? She searched, let's see, what is a lethal dose of fentanyl? Okay, it was one of the many phone searches that they said were made by Kouri. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing her name right. She killed, they allege, the prosecutor, she killed Eric Richins, her husband of 9 years, with a lethal dose of fentanyl. So one of the problems you have when you do your searches, so I recommend this to all you future criminals, you cannot go on your own personal computer and do searches for things you might do in the future that are not legal. So if you want to do that, you better like take a nice drive, maybe to a computer in a library somewhere. Do your searches there. You know, find a person you don't like, one of the persons who aren't really your friends, sneak into their study and do the search on their computer. You know, but don't do it on your own computer, because when they go backwards and look at the searches, they're like, you know, why were you searching for that? But what happens is that people, when they're searching, they're not thinking that they're going to just about to commit the crime. So they're just ruminating over things. And we all do that. We go, you know, I'm wondering what it would be like to, I thought about, I don't know, skateboarding. So you go in and you look up skateboarding, and then you think, maybe I'd like to go to Alaska. You put in that. You put in all kinds of weird stuff because you might do it one day. And as long as it's legal stuff, nobody really cares. But when you put in stuff that's illegal, that you're planning a crime based on what you're putting in, what you're buying on Amazon, for example, like a knife sheath or things like that, or a knife. You buy stuff on Amazon and that ends up at the crime scene, that you've left a breadcrumb trail. And the same is true for all your Google searches. So just trying to help you out in case you want to commit a crime. Michaela says, if someone looked at my search history, I am toast. Oh, Lord. My search history, since I've done a lot of stuff with sexual homicides and interesting sexual acts during sexual homicides of certain people, my search history would make me look like somebody who should be in a swingers club someplace. Because I have some stuff in there, you're like, why was she looking that up? And it's because when you're analyzing people and their behaviors, you do need to know what's out there. And some of it's pretty freaky. I know one thing I never put is anything to do with child pornography, because that's a mistake. I can't remember who did that. Somebody, was it an author or somebody? They looked up child pornography and then claimed he was doing it for research. Do not do that. I mean, that you do not do. Do not do that. You can put anything else in that search engine, but don't put in child pornography and say, gee, I wanted to look at children being raped to do my research. No, you don't. First of all, you shouldn't see that because it'll hurt you to your heart if you're not a psychopath. Secondly, you shouldn't do that. You'll end up in prison. And that's kind of stupid. Let's see. Few people, Shara says, few people creep me out the way she does. Well, she was very, she's an interesting character in the sense that, you have your children, you have your husband. A husband knew. He said, if I end up dead, she killed me, which always amazes me that A, you don't get out of there, and B, you don't take your children out. If she'll kill you, you can't trust her with the children either. And also, one of the things, the other information coming out on her is that she has sued. This distracts me up. Okay, let me show you. She has sued the estate of her husband. And hold on a second, I just lost this one. Sued the estate of her husband. She wants his money. And then, I don't think she's going to get any, but she sued his estate. It's like she won't stop. And she won't stop because what I believe is 100% a psychopath. And she's crying in court now. Sure. All right. And she's wearing white because she want to look virginal, but a psychopath doesn't seem to have a lot of times understanding of the actual situation they're in. So she's still trying for the money, even though she's going to go to prison for the rest of her life. So unless her defense is really, really good, but she's a creepy person. Remind me to always search with a private VPN. That is also something you can do. Use a VPN. And there are things to say they don't retain what you search for. I know, I've always been a little uncomfortable with that. My theory is this. Whatever you do that is connected to electronics, your text messages, your computer searches, that's not private. In my opinion, nothing is private except unless you're in your bedroom with the door closed and there's no cameras in there or cell phones. In other words, if there's absolutely no way that people can see what you're doing in the bedroom, that might be private. You walk out in public, it's not private. You go on the internet, it's not private. If you're going to do something, you damn well better own it, and that's why I have very little sympathy with people who do get on their phones, take pictures of themselves naked and send it to somebody. It's idiotic. It's there forever and they can do whatever they want with it. You can say, well, it was private. He shouldn't have shown that. You shouldn't have shown that. You actually sat there and texted, did sexting with somebody. You're an idiot. And you're going to be an idiot. You're going to pay for it. If you're lucky, you won't, but you're going to pay for it. And these days, anything you do is there forever on the internet. So it's not like the old days. She does not blink. I haven't watched any of the videos. I don't watch the court stuff. So she doesn't blink. That is creepy. Siri knows. Yeah, that's scary, Siri. And the artificial intelligence now and all that stuff. Lauren says, I try to turn data sharing options off, but my web search will fill in sentences. Yes, it is true. There is, privacy is very limited. So make sure that if you want something to be private, it's done. you're performing whatever you're performing, whether it be a speech or a sexual act or an opinion, make sure it's in a place where it's not being recorded in one way, one form or the other, because this is a new world we're in. So it's kind of useless. This is true, Sarah. It's like the idiots who spend $500 in cleaning products on camera at Home Depot. Yes. Oh, that's a great point. Your shopping follows you. Every place that you buy something, you can try to buy without your credit card, try to use cash. But yes, if there is any record of it by video, you're done there as well. So, yeah. And keep receipts if you want your receipts. Yeah, if you want a good alibi, it's good to keep your receipts. Somebody asked me something here. Hold on a second. Let me see. What was that comment? Hold on a second. I saw a comment up here, and it was something I thought was important. Now I can't find it. It's way back here somewhere. Oh, this is true. How to dispose of a body seems to be a common search. It is that. Yes. I can't find the one I was going to go back to. But anyway, yeah. So she's a good example of how to screw up and get caught. Which thank God she's getting caught. And she was trying to be sneaky because she was pretty much done with her husband. She wanted his money. She wanted the house she wanted to buy. I guess she wasn't going to kill off her children, but she was, very willing to kill off her husband because, as I always say, this is the way psychopaths think. You're either useful or you're in the way. It's one or the other. So a lot of times it's a little confusing to people in a relationship with a psychopath, but a psychopath can be kind and nice as long as it suits them. They can even be kind to children and look like they love them because the children are useful to them. It could be because the children make them proud because they could produce children. And if you're a male, for example, look, I made 2 boys. You could be nice to somebody because you want their money. You could be nice to them because you want to have sex and you're not too good at getting sex elsewhere. So you finally found a woman who'd marry you and you're really nice to her for a while because you get sex from her. They can be nice. But as soon as you become a problem or those children become a problem, they're liabilities and they can get rid of them in a heartbeat. And then people say, well, they always seem like a great mom or a great dad or a great wife or a great husband. Well, yeah, as long as things were going their way. But as soon as they weren't, they got rid of their problem. And most of us who are not psychopaths, that's not the way we deal with problems because we recognize the other person has rights. And even if it's a problem, we might care about their well-being, even if they're a problem. So we would not do these things. We would try to find a better solution, shall we say, than killing off our partners or children. Yeah. So now speaking of that, how about this fella? This guy, I was asked to talk about him because he killed. Where are they? Oh no, this is. I'll do him later. Hold on a second. Wrong guy. I'm going to do a different one first. Where'd he go? This character. Let me find his story here. Where'd he go? Oh, no, that's not it. Hold on. Don't tell me I've lost him. And I have lost him. Well, I'll tell you about the guy because I just lost my information on him. But anyway, this guy, that's not it either. Hold on a second. I'm having issues. Where is it? Where's the kids? Oh, I forgot to put that up. Anyway, he shot his 3 boys on the front lawn. Here he is. I think this is it. Yes. So he decides he's going to kill all 3 of his boys. He has an older daughter. He doesn't kill her. His wife supposedly tries to stop him, and she gets shot in the hand only. And one of the boys, I think I'm going to guess the older boy, tried to run, and he was brought back. He executed all 3 boys on the front lawn with that gun. And then when the police came for him, he goes, "Oh, I'm not going to hurt you, and the dog's not going to bite you." Well, gee, that's nice to know. And then he's in court now, and he's so real cold blooded when they come and get him. And then all of a sudden in court, he's like, "Oh, what was me?" Why? Why did he decide to kill his? I'm trying to see if I can find this guy's name. For some reason, I misplaced it. And the question right now is, why did he kill all three of his sons? Why? And there is no answer as of yet. And next week, when I do the show, maybe there'll be a supposed motive, because it didn't kill his whole family, so it wasn't a total family annihilation. Why the three boys? What was the issue there? Was he getting back at his wife? And he's going to, you can't take my boys away from me. I don't care about the daughter, but you can't take my boys away. Were they getting separated, divorced? We don't know that yet. Is that why he killed them? And we don't know at this point. But the one interesting thing is that supposedly tried to strangle his dad, choked his dad with his bare hands a number of years ago. And his dad didn't come to court, so that was dropped. And this is where I always say to people, because when I talk about people become victimized, it's not I'm trying to blame the victim. I'm trying to say, what did you notice that was going on that would have been a red flag for you to get the hell out of there sooner? Okay, to do something and not accept what that person is doing. I'm going to say if he choked his dad out, I'm going to say there's probably way more that was going on. And there were 4 children in this marriage. Now, I don't know if the girl was his. I assume it was, but I don't know. There are 4 children. You had to go through child after child after child after child. And, marriage isn't perfect. I mean, I'm a divorced woman, so, obviously for me, it wasn't perfect. But I also didn't have a violent husband. Okay, so I never feared for my children's lives. My husband was always kind to the children and a good father. So I wasn't worried about taking the children and running because he might harm them. I also never worried about him harming me physically. So, but there are these red flags, and I'm going to say I'm wondering what the red flags were here, that you have to get your kids out earlier or don't have them. And I point this out again and again. If you're dating somebody, don't marry them for 2 years. Make sure they're a keeper. After you get married to them, wait 2 years before you have a kid with them to make sure they'd be a good father. You've got 4 years there to find out whether they're controlling, violent, whatever, before you put children into that situation. We as adults, sometimes we take risks for whatever reasons, but we don't have the right to bring a child into that risk factor, just because we want it. So if you want to go hang out with the guy in the cartel, like I'm watching in the movies, okay. So you hang out with the guy in the cartel, and one day they shoot your husband down and they come after you too. Fine. You want to die off with your husband? Have at it. But don't have kids with him. The guy's a cartel drug runner. You're putting your kids' lives at risk so you can have what you want. That's not right. So 2 years before you get married, 2 years before you have kids, after you get married. 4 years. So I'll give that speech. I will give that speech 100 times just to see if wait. Why? Oh, yes. Why did he line them up? Because he executed them. That's why. Now we're going to find out more about this, but next week I'll tell you what more I saw. But yes, he executed them. 1920s morality. I don't know. I think that should be all-time morality. He will get a wife and a movie in prison. I don't know. I think he's pretty creepy, so I'm thinking no. This was true. What do you think? Why do you think he seemed so calm when the police arrived? Because I'm going to say he wasn't willing to die with the kids. Some family annihilators and also annihilate themselves. Usually that happens because their lives are a mess, and they don't want people to live on who know them to then mock them and say what an idiot or what a horrible guy. So they make sure they're dead and then they kill themselves. So they all go together. I'm going to say he didn't want to die, and he wanted. I think there must be something about getting back at the wife. That's my theory right now. They shot all of them. I don't know if the girl is his. I'd be curious to find out whether the older daughter is his daughter or whether he only cared about the boys and she was going to take them in a divorce. I don't know. But it more looks like a revenge thing to me. And then once the revenge is done, he doesn't want to die. He's willing to go to prison, but he doesn't want to get killed. Let's see. Speaking of, and I want to talk about the other guy I just showed here. Last week I talked about neighbors, really dangerous neighbors, and what happens when you live next to a neighbor and there are problems over the years. The question I have is, of course, if the neighbor comes and kills you, you're dealing with a psychopath, but there's also things that set psychopaths off. So now again, not blaming victims for being killed, but you can also save your life if you pay attention to things not to do that piss off the psychopath next door. And what happened with this guy, where did he go? Where's my guy that I was going to show you? This guy, yes. This guy killed this whole family next door. And why did he do this, you ask? All right. What it stated here is, man lost it and killed 4 neighbors after one exposed himself to his wife and daughter. All right. The guy's name is Majorjon Kaylor. Interesting name. Supposedly, he allegedly shot and killed. It's not too allegedly. He did. And killed 4 of his neighbors 5 days after one of the victims exposed himself to his wife and daughter. Major, I can't pronounce his name, Majorjon Kaylor, no, he was 31 years old, was arrested on 4 counts of murder after the deaths of Kenneth Guardapi, he is 65 years old, his daughter, Kenna Guardapi, 41, and her 2 sons, Devin Smith and Aiken Smith. Okay, they were 18 and 16. All right. What did he do? He said he snapped and lost it after he and his wife are alleged to have been arguing with their neighbor's mother over the alleged exposure. A week before the shootings, Kaylor's family called the police to complain that 18-year-old Devin Smith was standing in front of his bedroom window, masturbating in view of Kaylor's young daughters who were playing outside. Now, first question I had was, is this true? Or is this an excuse he had to kill off the family? Smith's family lived in the bottom unit of the duplex and Kaylor's family lived on the top unit. So they were, in the same building, and the daughters were playing outside, and supposedly the 18-year-old was masturbating in the window in front of his daughters. That's what he claimed. All right. Police were called in and investigated on June 13th. It was not clear if Smith was charged. That's the 18-year-old who was supposedly masturbating. But the local police department recommended that Smith be charged with indecent exposure, a misdemeanor. We responded to the call and the report was done, but they did not charge him. The question is, did he do it? Well, it's interesting. It says here, further on, hopefully I can find it in this one. Oh, man. Sometimes I get more than one article, and the one article has it and the others don't. Apparently, there were issues about this 18-year-old doing such things before. Like, it wasn't unknown that he would do something like this. So the alleged masturbating at the window in front of his daughters was likely to be true. Okay. Now, why was he doing that? Was he doing that because he was purposely exposing himself to the daughters because he thought that was thrilling and fun? Was he doing it because he just wasn't paying attention to the shade on the window being opened? The problem is this. Apparently, the family knew there were issues. The family with a child who was masturbating at the window. They knew there were issues. Yet, time goes on, and those issues aren't dealt with. And now you have a guy who gets pissed off and kills everybody. Now, can you kill everybody because a guy masturbates at a window? No, you cannot. Now, there's a great difference, in my opinion. If that 18-year-old was out raping his daughter, in the process of raping his daughter, I think a bullet to the head is acceptable, because that's self-defense for his daughter, to stop the man from doing what he's doing to your child. You have a right to defend her that way. You can kill him. However, when this guy's masturbating and your daughter can see it and comes and says, Daddy, look what's happening, she is no longer involved in the event. The event was unfortunate. The event was basically illegal. It was wrong. But the event, she is not participating in at that point in time. Likewise, mind you, if you catch a guy who raped your daughter and your daughter comes in and says, he raped me, can you go and kill the guy who your daughter said just raped her? No, you cannot. The event has ended. You have the right to call the police and get the guy arrested and go through the court system. You cannot go there at that point in time and kill him for what he did, much as you would like to, much as wouldn't break my heart. You know what I mean? If that were true that he did that, I'm not feeling sorry for the guy that gets shot, but it is not legal to do so. You may only commit homicide when it is justifiable. You cannot go kill 4 people, the whole family, because they didn't manage that kid. You can't. That's just a fact. On the other hand, that family should have managed that kid. They should have done something to stop this problem when the problem had been occurring in some fashion prior to that. So again, we're talking about a bad neighbor who ends up killing this family. Now, not all of them are guilty of what he considers them guilty of, but that's when, if we want to stay safe, you also have to be aware that you can't provoke, because sometimes you end up dead by provoking. And, it's you can claim that doesn't give them the right. No, it doesn't. Just like, you're driving down the highway and a guy cuts you off. You zoom up next to him, put down your window, call him a whole bunch of names. You provoked him. He was wrong to begin with, but now you provoked him. And it's not okay to drive up next to somebody and threaten them through a window and call them names. The guy pulls out a gun and shoots you. Did he have the right to shoot you? No. But on the other hand, what were you doing? Why were you doing the provoking thing? So, to keep safe in this world, just have proper living, proper behavior, and avoid conflict that causes this kind of thing. And we can't always do it. I mean, sometimes we're going to get taken out no matter how nice we are. But it's just, on the other hand, sometimes not so good. Just unfortunate. But now this is a possible point. Parents didn't set a foundation of accountability and consequences. That seems to be, or the community, mind you. We have a problem with law enforcement that they're not allowed to arrest people hardly anymore for things, and they give up arresting people because they just walk when they get in there. So then there isn't accountability legally either for something you shouldn't have been doing, and it makes people take the law into their own hands, and oftentimes in very, very terrible ways, which shouldn't be happening. So yeah, shouldn't be happening. Why did he kill the whole family? Well, he killed the whole family because, one Michaela solved the. I just have to put that. Where is that one? Where was that? Where was that comment? I just have to put that up first. Solved a problem, no more masturbation. Well, there you go. The guy stopped the problem, but apparently he held everybody accountable for the problem. Now, I don't know we'll have to see in the weeks to come, how often did he try to deal with these people? How often did things happen that it set him off to this point? Again, he's guilty of the crime he committed. He cannot kill people because of that. You cannot. So he's going to go to prison for the rest of his life, or get the death penalty. I don't know which one. I assume it's going to be a life sentence. But 4 people are dead. So I'll be curious to see. I'm trying to figure out what happened to it's really annoying me let me see if I can find the one I lost. It always annoys me when I lose the one that had the information in it. Let's see if I can find another article that tells us a little bit more, because because it seemed to me that this guy had issues and it wasn't being dealt with in the community or by the family, or just failed. Let's see. You see if this is the article that had it. Let's see. Yeah, it's not it either. Sorry. Maybe I'll find it by next week. But I thought that was just, it's very sad again. 3-4 people have lost their lives. And again, we have the neighbor issue. But, when you have neighbors, you're trying to live together in a small area, you're always going to affect the person that lives next to you. And you have to have, your behavior has to be on the best, and so should theirs. But, conflicts do arise, and you got to prevent those conflicts as much as possible, because you never know when you got a nutcase that's next door. But, if you're contributing to the issues, but our law enforcement system now, we're down a lot of police. We're down, the whole system is sort of crashed in the United States, where people aren't being held accountable. And we're having a problem with the youth being involved in crimes they're just hard to believe. Like this one, for example, this was just crazy to me. This one. Now, I live in a town where people have $1 million houses, and not me, not me. We're not one of them, but there's $1 million houses in this town. The housing is expensive here. It's Bowie, Maryland. It has been the richest African-American community in the country. Most people are extremely nice here. Children are well raised, but even in this town now, we're seeing more and more. We had teenage girls do carjacking at the outdoor mall in town, which is perfectly nice place. I've never seen anything there at all. And there's a carjacking there. There's things that are happening which used to happen in places where, well, let's say people had rougher lives. This is theoretically not one. And this one really got to me because this is the Prince George's County where I live. Their investigation led to large seizure of firearms and illegal drugs. As you can see, they had a few firearms along with all those illegal drugs. Now, they were suspected of being GMF crew members. GMF crew, and I don't want to say that out loud. This is an enterprise coming out. It's actually a New York gang. And here's some guys in the New York gang. They're called all these names. There's Jimmy, Lingo, Cheese, Red, Briscoe, Flizzy, Banga. And then if you look mostly down on the page, they were members and associates of the grimy MFers. So a criminal organization whose members and associates engage in, among other activities, narcotics trafficking, murder, and assault with dangerous weapons. They operate principally around the city of Yonkers, New York. But apparently, they're in Bowie, Maryland, too. And here's what really got me. They arrested 3 kids. They arrested a 24-year-old, Joseph Crawford of Greenbelt, 24-year-old Donnell Holloway of Capitol Heights. But the main guy they arrested, this is what blows me away, was 22-year-old Cassius Covington of Bowie. Yes, he was from Bowie. Okay, well, you think to yourself, okay, that kid's messed up, right? Comes from bad background. He's not in school. He's, that little guy on the corner, drug dealing and all. No, that's not who he is. Check this guy out. Here he is. Here he is saying, and it's a little video. He speaks very clearly and well, and he says he says, hey, come out and cheer on myself and my teammates. We're having a semifinal matchup against Woodrow Wilson tomorrow. He's a basketball player. And he not only is a basketball player, he goes to, hold on a second, I got to take up this a second. Yeah, Archbishop Carroll High School at this point. Archbishop Carroll High School. That is a private Catholic high school that costs buku money to go to. Not only that, here he is. Here's his basketball profile. Born in Upper Marlboro, that's the next town over from me. Nationality is USA. I think this was actually an Italian basketball team or something. he was that good a player that he was doing really well. What the heck? This is not a poor kid. This is a kid from what appears to be a good family who could afford to send him to private school. And I thought I saw he was going to college and playing basketball too. So why the heck, if you're going to college and playing basketball at college, you got your life ahead of you. You've got good things going for you, but you decided to get involved in drug trafficking? And it just blows me away because he looks like a really nice kid up until when I saw this article. And I was like, what the heck? What happened to this kid when he had things going for him, you know? And we're seeing more and more of these kids who actually have, you know, say, you can understand when kids, you know, they don't have a dad and the mom is, you know, prostituting and on crack, and they are living in some crappy apartment and they're on the streets half the time because mom's not paying any mind. Okay, I get it. You know, you're already used to a life of crime. You just kind of keep going. But here's a kid who clearly looked like he had a good upbringing, was going to a great school. What the heck? He had that just really makes me sad, because that's the kid that, you know, I would have wanted my daughter to date. You know, I would say, oh, he looks fine. You know, he's going to a good school. He's well spoken. Look, he lives in the area. He plays basketball. He's really nice. Yeah, unbelievable. It's just terribly sad. Was the picture of the guns and baggies in Bowie? Yes, that is all. That's right down the road from me. I can get there in 10 minutes. Yeah. It's just, and this is something I think we need to address this. We do. I mean, I'm trying to keep this from being a political channel, but if we want not to have crime, we have to stop it when it's developing, and we have to stop it when it happens, because we don't have a choice. Otherwise, all chaos breaks loose, and our children are the ones who suffer the most. It's just very, very sad. And also the question about somebody asked me about the guy that was in this was the this happened in England, and I think that some of the concepts about this particular crime might be incorrect. Let me find it. I probably lost this one too. Why is this happening to me? Where the heck? This is crazy. You know, every once in a while I tell you that I end up losing some of my tabs that are on, which happens. I just end up losing the tabs. Let me see if I can find it. I'm just going to have to open up a new one. I'll just go to the news, and I'm trying to remember the location. If somebody remembers the location, tell me. Okay, I could probably get it quickly. Nottingham. So this happened. These three young people. Two of them are young people, and this was another fella, and they were all stabbed to death. This guy stabbed these three, and then he stole a van and ran down three more. These three are dead. One is in critical. And it's this guy. And this is, again, very, very hard to understand. His name is, oh, come on, give me the information here. Yeah. Let me find another one. Not 9 days ago. No, I can't find his name because I had it open, but it just vanished on me. The thing is, he's 31 years old, and he was college graduate. I think it was medical engineering, and he was looking for a job in computers, couldn't find one. He had been dating a model, a very attractive woman, apparently. I don't know, they wouldn't tell her name, and they had broken up. And there are a lot of people saying, because he comes from originally from Sierra Leone in West Africa. Oh, this is a terrorist attack. Nah, it's not a terrorist attack. It's a mass murder, but I see no evidence there's a terrorist attack. He actually grew up in Wales, and his family had been in England like I think it was 15 years. The other two kids in the family, one went to Harvard. I mean, there's again a family that's doing well, and he was doing well. And what the heck set him off? Now there are people that said he had been hearing voices prior to this happening. So I don't know about the legitimacy of that, but there were a number of people that said they thought something was wrong with him. And you're starting to hear voices, whether it's going into schizophrenia or whatever. And some people came and said, well, I've been schizophrenic. I don't go out and commit a mass murder. But he obviously went on this rampage. Why did he go on this rampage? Was it because, so we can look at two possibilities here. Was it because he's really a psychopath, not a terrorist, nothing to do with where he was born? Was he a psychopath who, when he failed in life, couldn't get the job and lost the woman? Did he then want to do what mass murderers like to do? Kill a bunch of people and get a name for yourself and prove your point. You've been ignoring me. Now I'm going to go out and take it out on whomever, whomever. I don't care who it is. Just take him out. Or was he truly hearing voices and lost it psychologically to the point where he started racing around doing crazy stuff? And I don't know the answer to that. But when a person's 31 and starts hearing voices, my question is always why. Now, people said he did sit outside, I guess, and have a drink and a smoke, but nobody said he was a drug user. So we're going to have to wait again before we jump to conclusions. And I saw a lot of people saying a lot of very nasty things about this guy, and which I get it. He's a mass murderer, so it's hard to be nice about him, right? But coming up with motives, especially terrorism, when there's no legitimate reason to think he's a terrorist at this point in time. I mean, as far as I'm considered, is if he grew up in Wales, he hasn't been in Africa in a darn long time. It's not like he just got off a boat and was an illegal immigrant, and he was being treated badly and couldn't survive. And he went, decided he hated the people he was coming to stay with. It wasn't that. The guy's been there for years, grew up. He's probably been around for like at least 20 years. He's a UK citizen. I mean, so I see no evidence that there's any terrorism here. I see mass murder, but I don't know whether mass murder, again, is psychopathic or psychotic. We're going to have to wait to find out. I know. So with psychopaths, the problem is you can't stop them. You can try to prevent them from becoming psychopaths, but you can't stop them unless, it really is hard to stop them. Mass murder is extremely difficult to stop because they don't care what happens to themselves as long as they get to get their day in the sun and they get to take out their rage. And they can make up any story for why they're doing it too in their own head, or tell you things, and it's not necessarily true. They'll just say, oh, I hate people because of their race, or I hate people because they're female, or I hate people because they're students and they're successful and I'm not. They can make up anything they want to make up. The point is, it's a rage against society. Or is the guy truly psychotic? In which case, we are having a problem with a lack of mental health facilities. And since we've released an awful lot of people to the streets and we seem to think they can function out on the streets without proper care, we're running into more instances of psychotic attacks because a person's out there, and sometimes they're homeless because they can't keep a job and they've got these problems, and then they can either push people into a train track, they can stab you, usually they don't have access to a gun, so it's usually stabbing or pushing or beating people with a rock. But this rage that even psychotics sometimes, because they're not functioning well in the world. But if we don't have proper handling somewhere in society to prevent this kind of thing, innocent people are losing their lives, and they seem like some really nice people that got killed. And the really sad thing supposedly was this young woman. She was out with this fellow and he attacked him first. And she tried to stop him. I mean, she could have run, but she didn't. She tried to stop him from hurting the man, and she got killed too. Just a really sad situation. But I don't know. I don't know what this guy's problem was. So who knows? We don't know yet, and I don't know if we'll ever know. But yeah, psychotic and disassociation from reality, perhaps. But the question is, how much evidence is there of that? A lot of times, we have sometimes psychopaths who will claim to have a psychotic event that is not necessarily so, depending on how premeditated it is and whether they had a grasp of reality. Now, on the other hand, there are people who clearly are psychotic and are completely, disassociated from reality and think, there are demons and evil things and that person is that. And that does happen. But there's usually evidence of that over a long period of time. He did not know the victims. No. Interestingly, the students actually, I think, went to the same school he had gone to, but he didn't know them. So really sad. That's interesting. Lauren says, I was a witness in a random stabbing that happened in my former workplace. A stranger just stabbed a customer in the neck. It seemed hard to understand the reason. Yeah, because he felt like it. That's just horrifying. Yeah, they were killed. Two young students were from his old university, but they said he didn't know them. So whether he had something in his head that he was against his university because he graduated from there and wasn't able to get work, and he's just pissed off at everybody else who was successful. Sometimes that's a fact. And by the way, please do not put any race stuff on my thing. It's not okay. Not okay. No race stuff, no politics stuff. This is not a channel for that. Not a channel for that at all. When I show a particular person who's committed a crime, it is not to say that this particular, quote, race commits more crimes than another race, or this was happened because of racism. Majority of the time, that has nothing to do with anything. What it does have to do with is human beings that have issues, problems, all kinds of things that are problematic in their lives and in their minds, which is why they do what they do. So, and this holds true for every society, every race, every culture. Never met a culture or race or society that didn't have issues. And the more crowded the society becomes, the more chaotic the society becomes. Oftentimes we see more violence among the people. And especially when, for example, it's kind of amazing to see sometimes when you look at any society that went through a lot, like El Salvador went through a lot with a war, and out of El Salvador came a lot of gang members. Became a very violent place. Gang members coming to the United States, and continuing those gangs in the United States. Why did this happen? It's because when you have war, you leave a lot of young people without fathers. You have a lot of young people grow up with violence, and that can affect them deeply. And the economy of the country crashes and burns, and all hell breaks loose. And so therefore you have a higher level of psychopathy, a higher level of violence among young people, especially, then that happens. But once sometimes when the country calms down, then you'll find that people are get themselves back together again, and a healthier environment is out there for everybody to live in, and that's a good thing. It's just it's every society goes like this, ups and downs, and wherever we're at, we just have to do our best to prevent people from being harmed and from people from getting to the point where they want to commit harm. I want to talk about this girl here. There was an interesting she went. Let's see what her name is, Tara Calico or Calico. I don't know how you pronounce her name. But they just said they have identified suspects in the 1988 cold case disappearance of 19-year-old Tara Calico or Calico, how do you pronounce her name? So they've arrested. They They didn't arrest. They identified. What's funny about it is when you read the article, they don't identify them. So apparently the authorities have identified to themselves somebody, but not to the general public. Now, what they're saying is that this is a story. It's been almost 35 years since Tara, I wish I knew how to pronounce her name, Tara, I'm just going to call it Tara, disappeared during a bicycle ride near her home in New Mexico. But authorities announced Tuesday that they have enough evidence now to turn the case over to the district attorney's office for possible prosecution. Now, what I find fascinating is this. The suspects haven't been named and court records remain sealed. They hope to provide more information as the case progresses. Now, what's fascinating about this is she's still missing. Her body has never been found. There's never been, as far as I know, any evidence. I don't know what evidence they've got. All right. So it says a 19-year-old, she was an avid cyclist, was last seen on a September morning in 1988, bicycling just a couple miles from home. Witnesses reported seeing her riding her bicycle along a New Mexico highway, and an old model truck following closely behind her. By the afternoon, when she hadn't returned, her mother reported her missing. She vanished along with her bicycle and was never found. So unless somebody confessed and they can find where her body is and find where the bicycle is, I don't know. Now, there was a theory that she was accidentally hit on the highway. And then so a couple guys are like driving down the highway in a truck and they accidentally hit her because she veered out, or they lost control and they hit her on the side. And they could have been chatting and not paying attention. They could have been drunk and veered off and hit her when she was in her bike lane or on the side of the road. And then they freaked out, said, oh my God, she's dead. So they picked her up, chucked her in the back of the truck, picked up the bicycle, chucked it in the back of the truck and drove away and buried her someplace along with the bicycle. That could have happened. I find that a little unlikely. Generally speaking, in situations where somebody's killed somebody in a vehicular accident, they just do a hit and run and they just drive away as fast as they can, and garage the truck in case there's any damage to it. Very rarely do they actually then pick up the body and the bike and do all that. So the other theory is that she was kidnapped, and then something happened to her. Interesting enough, there was this picture going around. I'm not going to show it here. The Polaroid photo of two bound children has stumped detectives for decades. In that photo, there's two children. They've got tape over their mouths. They look like their hands are bound behind their back. It's a famous photo. Looks like a teenage girl of some sort and a young boy. Now, Johnny Gosh's mother, the missing paper boy, claimed that it was him. And there was another woman who thought absolutely 100% it was her son. But it turned out that it wasn't her son. Her son had been, his body was found and it was not him. And so the Tara's family believes that the girl is Tara. They swear it's her. And this just goes to show, in my opinion, what happens a lot of times with, we also saw that with the, when I did the video on, was it Amy Bradley fell off the ship. And then people said, oh, she was, taken in, she was in sex trafficking. And there's a picture of this girl in a brothel, and that's her. And the family's, yeah, I think that's her. So, you think you would recognize your own child, but if A, time has passed, B, the picture can distort, and C, you're desperate to believe they're alive. A lot of families will see their child in a picture that is not their child. Interestingly enough, I think did the FBI just, let me see where that thing was about the FBI, said that, which I thought was interesting. They said, is this the picture one? Hold on a second. Okay. I thought the FBI claim is weird. It says this, hold on a second. They were certain, this is Tara's family, they were certain that the girl in the image was Tara, meaning she would have to have been alive months after her disappearance. And here's the problem there. Unless she were kept in a basement, excuse me, most of the time when people are abducted by sex predators, they're raped and killed, and that's the end of it within a day. The older they are, the more chance there is they're put in somebody's basement for a while and can be alive. But the concept that they're pulled into sex trafficking is almost always not true, because there's too many girls you can get into sex trafficking via simply the fact they're willing to prostitute, or they're on drugs, they're homeless or whatever, they're runaways. Also, there are some families who will help you have fun with their children. But usually you don't kidnap a kid, start up a whole police investigation just to have one kid to go into sex trafficking. It's not necessary. So that picture would not be of Tara being pulled into sex trafficking. However, they contacted Scotland Yard for whatever reason. Scotland Yard concluded the woman in the photo was Tara. Why? Why is that so? But not all investigators agreed. The FBI ruled that the evidence was inconclusive. So here you go. You got to be very careful about when people suddenly say, oh, the FBI says this, or Scotland Yard says that. It doesn't make it true. Because first of all, it's the media. I don't know who they're talking to in each one of these instances, unless you've got somebody on record for the entire department saying, we have analyzed this and this is our conclusion. Here's our report. It's just some guy saying something. And is it true? Does he know what he's talking about? Is he just wrong? I mean, I could say, oh my God, I think that's her. It doesn't make me right. So take all that with a grain of salt. But I will be curious to see whether they find out why they think they have somebody in this particular case of Tara, because I don't know. I mean, it's been that many years. Do they have anything? I'll be curious to see if they found anybody. So let's see. Lauren says, oh, how in the photo, the two people tied up, there was a book by Tara's favorite author. So maybe this reminded them of their daughter too. Oh, I did not see that. But yeah, you can, yes, thank you for telling the name. Yes, I can't pronounce her last name. It's Calico or Calico. I just don't know because I didn't listen to an audio on it. That's the problem when you just look at news reports. Yeah, desperation. You want your child to be alive. If your child has been kidnapped and you don't have a body, you're pretty much willing to believe anything. You're willing to see anything that gives you hope that they're alive. On the off chance it's true, it could just be true. And as a detective on cases, when they have to deal with, it's very frustrating for them because they'll be sitting in the office going, I know she's dead. I know she's not alive. She's not in sex trafficking. They know it's not true. But then the family keeps coming back to them. Are you looking for her? Are you looking at this? Are you checking all the different places of sex trafficking? Have you been online to find photos of her in sex trafficking? And they're kind of like, no, but they don't know how to say that because they're not going to waste their time. You've only got so much manpower, and cases come in when you got, depending on the department, you get so many cases. You can't spend going on some kind of, worthless search, for no reason and spend hundreds of hours doing that just because somebody thinks you should do it. You have to determine what is the most likely place to do your investigation. Where should your investigation go? And it should be led by evidence and understanding of how things work. But a lot of families don't understand how things work, and they want everything to be done regardless of whether it's rational or not. Because if you're the parent, family member, you want everything done, every stone, overturned. I mean, just look everywhere. But it's in reality, that is just not the way things can work. And you can't, except for the Madeleine McCann case, you can't spend $20 million. You can't. There was supposedly, I don't know what this photo was. They've never figured out. The photo was found in Florida, supposedly. It's hard to tell. It looks like two sad children. Looks like a kidnapping photo. For all we know, it could not be a kidnapping photo. It could be somebody thinking it's funny. Oh, look sad. I'm going to put some paper on you. Put your hands behind your back. And then they took a Polaroid and thought it was funny. Or it could be what it is, what it looks like. It could be two children who were kidnapped. But nobody's never figured out who those two children are. And so that's problematic. Nobody's come forward to say it was me. So either they're dead, most likely. The more likely thing, they would be dead, or they're in the control of relatives who they won't rat out. It's hard to say. It's really, really sad. Very, very sad. But I'm curious to see what they'll come up with with this particular case with Tara. So, yeah. So we'll find out in the weeks to come. Hopefully, we'll find out, what they've got, what evidence they could possibly have after all these years, enough to arrest and convict. Probable cause. What do they have? So I don't know. I'm hoping sometimes is what happens. We hear about something like this, and then it just vanishes out of the news, and you never hear about it again. And you're like, well, whatever happened to that? And it turns out that somebody jumped the gun, said something to somebody, leaked some information, gets in the media, and it's not very accurate. So, and that could be the situation. One thing, I'm going to just do one more tonight. I want to mention this just because one of these days I might do a whole case on it, but maybe with the Jim Jones thing. But this is a situation in Africa. It's in let me pull it up. I think it's Kenya. In Kenya, let me find it. All right, there is a starvation cult in Kenya. This guy was the head of this cult. His name is Paul Nathenge Mackenzie. He started preaching, and then he started this concept of this starvation thing. He bought this tract of land, and like Jim Jones, he got these people to go with him to this location where they are now finding, I think they're up to 300 bodies, including many children. Here's a gentleman, for example, who's lost a loved one. I think he lost a whole family of loved ones. I think his wife and his kids. His wife, like suddenly, got entranced by this guy, took the kids and went to live on this tract of land where the pastor had set this up. This guy, his name is this guy's name. Let's see. He had 6 children. His wife and 6 children. And he said that his name is Mr. Omuiti. His wife, Bahati Joan, was pregnant when she left last year with her children, a whole bunch of them. And then he found out later that his wife had also given birth to a son, and that son also died. So all of them are dead. And what they did was, the idea was, let's see, this place was called Shakahola, was where it's a Swahili word loosely translating as a place where worries are lifted. Well, I guess once you're dead, you don't have any worries, right? It was nestled in the expansive 50,000 acre area of Chakama Ranch in the coastal county of Kilifi. Pastor Mackenzie is reported to have owned 800 acres of the forest area. So what he did was he got these people out there, and he made this like a holy land, and he put these partitions in it of different biblical place names. And there was a Nazareth, and there's a Bethlehem in Judea. So he named these different areas. And this guy says, I learned that my wife and children lived and died in Jerusalem. They mapped out 65 sites where people were buried so far. Children were the first to die. Those who exhumed the corpses say the sight of people buried without dignity haunts them. At this point, they were up to 110, but now I know they're now up to 300. It says that they were forced to starve as a part of their adherence to teachings of this church that this guy ran, which was called the Good News International Church. Titus Katana, who managed to escape, says those who tried to leave the cult were branded as traitors and faced violent attacks. And if you remember Jim Jones, when he got everybody down there in Guyana, once they decided they were all going to die that day, anybody who tried to escape got killed. And this particular case, it wasn't a one-day thing. This is what's so fascinating about it and so horrific. This wasn't a one-day thing. This was an ongoing thing where people were not eating and they weren't feeding their children. They were supposed to, die ahead of the end of the world. So there's another end of the world called end of the world is coming, but we're going to get there before all the tragedy happens around us. We're just going to leave peacefully. The children were the first to die. Then after the children, they went for the unmarried. Then after that, the mothers and the elderly were next in line. The church leaders were supposed to be the last to die. Oh, that's always useful. Explaining what drew him to the church, Mr. Katana said he thought that Pastor Mackenzie was charismatic and preached God's word well. And so then he also started selling land to his followers. So this guy bought 15 acres. But then when he saw how odd his preaching had gotten, he decided to leave. All right. He found out that his infant son was only breastfed once, and then he was suffocated to death. I heard that when my son was killed, instead of the cult members grieving, they clapped and rejoiced that he had ascended and met Jesus. A BBC analysis of Pastor Mackenzie's sermons on video do not show him directly ordering people to fast, but there are many references to followers sacrificing what they hold dear, including their lives. So anyway, as of last week, according to this article, they reported 410 people, including 227 children, were thought to have some connection to the church, were missing. So we're up to almost 600 people who are missing. So, yeah. This guy, this other fellow, Patrick Ngumbao, said that his mother went missing 2 years ago, and he went looking for her in Shakahola, and he found her, but he could not persuade her to leave. I asked her if she would accept to come home, and she told me that she was there for one mission, to find Jesus. So there were hundreds of people now trying to find out what happened to all their loved ones. And so they had everybody fasting, which is one way not to have to spend money on food. He said his sister was there. She'd already been fasting for 22 days. And mind you, I have fasted in my life for 22 days. So if you have weight on your body, you don't die in 22 days. You're actually perfectly fine. I can go play pickleball, 22-day fast. And it wasn't a religious fast. I was just at one point trying to lose weight. And it's, fasting can be healthy for you. I'm not going to have a big discussion on that. But I was overweight, so it's not that hard. But if you're weighing 110 pounds and you fast for 22 days, you're getting into the danger zone. And then if you keep going, you die, okay, because you must eat. And so and especially with the children, they're just not feeding the children. The reason I'm bringing this whole thing up is it's like a Jim Jones thing. It's hard to fathom what could encourage people to follow somebody, because there's a lot of churches in Kenya, Christian churches in Kenya, which are perfectly healthy Christian churches. You're going to go there. You're going to have a wonderful community. The pastor's going to be supporting good health and good life. And you're going to be there to have a great community and follow your religion, and everything's dandy. But then every once in a while, just like Jim Jones, this guy pops out of somewhere, and somehow he's able to, and this is a psychopath, mind you, and they're very charismatic. And they love the concept of that they are these leaders that everybody believes in. It's a huge ego trip. Jim Jones was a massive egoist and had this ability to convince people to go to Guyana, which is nothing wrong with Guyana. But if you're being put in the middle of the jungle with inadequate supplies, you're not going to have that great a life. And then when you get down there, then you're able to convince people to drink that Kool-Aid and die. Because now you got a quicker way to get to heaven. And this guy's doing the same thing, only he actually made them starve themselves over weeks. And the children, to watch their children die first. One has to wonder what kind of ability he has charismatically to convince people that this is a better way to live. Now, there's always that point where people are struggling in life when they don't have a great, when they're suffering from poverty, when they're suffering from not seeing a positive future, where they think they and their children can have a good life. They're easier to pull into these death cults because they figure, well, on this earth, it's not going to happen for me, so I'm just going to hurry it up. I'm going to get my kids out of here. And I think that probably is the reasoning, but it's fascinating when you talk about a mass psychosis, essentially, This is what it is. It's a mass psychosis, that you can get a whole bunch of people to believe a certain thing. And the more people you can get to believe it, the more it becomes acceptable and something you can be a part of. I think I did that video on what's his name? I forgot his name now. The Mormon break off Mormon church. And one of the things I pointed out in that video is, why would people want to be there? And it's because there are some things that are offered, especially in the beginning, that are alluring. A feeling of being a part of a community, for feeling like you're being loved, feeling like you finally have an answer, feeling like you're no longer just wandering around wondering what's going to happen. You now know you're going in a direction, even if the direction is off a cliff. It's a direction, and somebody's leading you. And there is an attraction for that, for people who have a lot less confidence in themselves and confidence in the future, confidence in the world around them. So, but this is probably one of the most egregious ones I've ever heard of. At least the Mormon fellow. Well, I just blanked on his name. Somebody tell me he's an ex-Mormon. So he's what's his name? Heaven's Gate. Thank you, Heaven's Gate. But was it Heaven's Gate that I did the thing on? That they actually had, in spite of the fact that they were forced to marry, the women were told who they had to marry and all that stuff, they did have a community around them, and they felt special in that community, and they had a lot of good things going. And I wanted to show that in the video, that they were, they had friendships, and they had, picnics and all this kind of stuff. So they weren't like their whole life sucked, and they're willing then to, after you get in there and you have a life that you feel is, comforting and like wraps itself around you, you don't want to lose that. Then you have to go back out into the world again. So, but this one is so egregious. It didn't even seem like they had much time to have a good community. Yeah, that's what kind of shocked me in the whole thing. It's like, maybe they got to go live in this forest and not eat. I mean, it just is so bizarre. I find it fascinating that they drew that many people in, especially when they had to kill their children first. That is phenomenal. I mean, it is true that probably some of these people, I'm going to say that they were suffering from poverty, maybe feeling they were having difficulty feeding their children anyway, and this way they solved the problem. But it'd be interesting to see exactly how many people they find died in this whole thing. But I'd like to see how. I was trying to look for some information on the cult itself, and I found a lot of I was looking at Kenyan news, and they would start the Kenyan news report in English, and then they would bring somebody to talk about it, and that person would then speak in Swahili, which I do not speak. But the funny thing was, I did get a little bit of information from the Swahili speaker, because they had a sign language interpreter in the corner, and the sign language interpreter was signing Kenyan Sign Language. But since I'm fluent in American Sign Language, it's not the same one. But apparently there were Americans who went over to Kenya years ago and started teaching with American Sign Language. So they've developed a mix in their languages, some American Sign Languages in there, so that I actually recognize quite a few words, quite a few signs in the language. So I was able to catch on to a little bit. So it's kind of funny that I was learning about what happened through the Kenyan Sign Language interpreter of Swahili. It's like kind of crazy, but I did learn a bit. But it was hard, because I would have loved to hear fully the stories of people, and I wanted to hear. I'm trying to find a little bit more about this pastor, how he inspired these people to that extent. Just say charismatic is interesting to me. That. Yeah, fascinating. Let's see, Lauren, even in situations where the followers don't seem necessarily forced at gunpoint, I feel there's ways they are coerced because it becomes their environment. Yes, that's a good way to put it, Lauren. You are coerced by, once you involve yourself, and this is true for gangs. This is true for sororities and fraternities. It's true for just a certain, even small, no, within our own cultures and small groups in our cultures, we get led into certain ways of thinking and cannot separate from them because of the suffering we would have to do so. So yes, there's more to. That's why I've always said there's more to gangs. The same thing. You have children joining gangs because they're missing something in their lives, and they're getting brothers or sisters in that gang, even possible fathers in that gang, and they're getting camaraderie, and they're getting a community that they don't have, and they're getting hope for getting stuff. It could be getting the ladies, it could be getting gold, jewelry, it could be getting a fancy car, it could be getting good drugs. But you get something, whereas if you're not in that gang, maybe you don't get much at all at home. Maybe you don't have a dad. Maybe you can't afford a car, so you got to take the bus all the time. And girls don't like you because you got to take the bus all the time. So you don't have much going, and then the gang offers you something. And so what if you die in 3 years? You still have a good time on the way. So yes, I think that's a very good thing to point out, to how that affects the fact that people can get sucked into things, get sucked into criminal activities, and get sucked into. I mean, we had essentially these families end up murdering their own children, and what could lead them to do that? It's just frightening, really, really frightening. Belonging and bonding is a good point. Companionship, fulfilled socially, all of these things. And the thing is, but Michaela asked, who would have thought there's no standard sign language? No, there isn't. Every country has their own sign language. Yeah. So I went to India, to Punjab, and worked at a Punjabi deaf school, and they sign Indian Sign Language, which is not at all like American Sign Language. I can tell you, nothing matches at all. There is actually more in the Kenyan Sign Language, I said, because apparently somehow some people came over there with ASL, and then it morphed into Kenyan Sign Language. Yeah, every country has its own, except that you will have certain countries. Canada does American Sign Language. Jamaica does American Sign Language, although with a Jamaican accent, Canada with a Canadian accent. But Mexico has Mexican Sign Language. England has English Sign Language. I can't understand any of British Sign Language at all. So it doesn't matter what the spoken language is. It has nothing to do with the actual sign language of the country. It's a completely different language. So yeah, it's quite fascinating. I love sign languages all over the world. They're amazing. Yeah, so anyway, I just wanted to bring that up as the last thing for the show, because, that was a horrific crime, what happened there. And yet I'm sure people, when they started into this whole thing, didn't see it for what it was. And I'm just always amazed when you have somebody who can lead to that extent. But there always has to be something wrong, right there. So, and I say sometimes it's a small thing, like it can be, I say, a smaller issue, and then it can be a gang, and then it could be, and then it can go into something like a cult situation. And as I point out all the time, the shows isn't about religion, because it has nothing to do with it being a, quote, Christian cult. That's not Christianity. That's a cult. That's a psychopath making people do weird things. That's what it is. It's not one particular religion has any. It's not the religion or any aspect of the religion. It is you can take anything and turn it into something else, and use words, and you can use signs, and you can use visuals, and you can use whatever, and put whatever meaning you have to that if you can convince people. So again, not a political or a religious channel here, but it's an interesting psychological thing that sometimes, and this is where I say it's the same as gangs. When I look at that young man who was the basketball guy, I'm like, why would you join this gang? Now, what was he missing in his life? When it appears he grew up in a very wealthy neighborhood, and he grew up going to private school, what would make you join a gang? Because he already had accolades from playing basketball and going to college. He had stuff going for him. I don't know. I'm curious I would be curious to know why he chose to join a gang. And actually, he was actually more of a leader of that particular crew. The others were more of the followers. So how did he get into this? And that's why I look at all these different groups that end up with criminal activity, is how do people get sucked into them, into the mafia, into the cartels, and what are they willing to risk, and how do they justify things to themselves that it's okay to do these things. I'm always appalled when people sell drugs and they're like, well, I just did it for the money. Well, you're killing people. You're hurting children. How do you justify that? And I find it interesting that they do. That they do. But yeah, it's part of a well, here's a pleasant thing to go to sleep on. Yeah, the starvation cult. It just came out a few weeks ago. And I've been watching the numbers go up. What does that badge mean, Pat Brown? What? Badge explained. A badge of what? What are we talking? I have no idea what we're talking about here, but okay. I'm trying to figure out what's being said about a badge, which I have absolutely no understanding of. Badge you gave out. I have no idea. I don't even know what that means. So I'm going to let it go. You'll have to send me a message and tell me whatever you're talking about. So, okay. So that's it for tonight. I'll be here on the weekend with the Freeway Phantom. What? Wait. Okay, wait a minute. Now I got to see this. I got a message that you gave out a badge linked to your Facebook. No. That sounds like some kind of scammy thing. I don't do that kind of crap. No. If that's true, I'm going to say that's a scam thing. Yeah. Oh, let me mention this to you guys because I see people get really upset about this a lot. Facebook, you'll get weirdos that come in. You'll get claims that this is a scam or you've been hacked. Blah 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 blah. It's on your Facebook. It says top fan when I comment. I have not a clue, Sarah. Maybe it's a Facebook thing. They're throwing up stuff. I have no clue. But here's something I want to say about Facebook, Twitter, and all these things. A lot of people get really bent out of shape because they say, "Oh my God, this strange guy, said he wanted to be my Facebook friend." Just ignore it. Learn to ignore stuff. A lot of things come through. You'll get them on your emails. There's a new email thing that comes out that you've just purchased this for $300. You purchased some computer protection program of some sort. It cost you $395 and you paid to PayPal. And then people, oh my God, how did that happen? Then they contact them. No, that's the scam. Just ignore it. Ignore anything that these are emails that just roll on through. They're like Nigerian scams. They just roll on through. They come through Facebook all the time. I have 2 Facebook accounts, up to 10,000 people on my Facebook accounts. I don't know who the heck most of these people are because I started my Facebook for work. So I don't have really a private Facebook. So I have some of you guys coming in that I know who you are, and I comment back to you because I know who you are. But there's a lot of people who are just signed up on my Facebook. I haven't got a clue who they are. Creepy dudes. I don't know what they are. And of course, I recommend when you're especially for your children and for yourselves, just never accept anybody as a friend who you do not know. I do because it's an open, it's a public thing. But most of you, Facebook should be private and should be just your friends. So never accept anybody who isn't. But if you get some guy saying, I want to be your Facebook friend, don't get all bent out of shape. Just ignore it. Just ignore it. And I have 10,000 people, and I have never been hacked. I have never had any issues. And I have crazy things that come in all the time. Oh my God. Over on Twitter, I got so many Chinese porn things. You can't believe it. I mean, it's like, they're hardcore porn, and they're people sending me direct messages and they're like, hi, I'm like, I know what they are. I don't respond. I just ignore every single one of them. Just learn to ignore things. They don't matter. And don't respond, because often responding is what causes the problem. The response is what gets you in trouble, not ignoring them. Because the reason they're sending these things to you is so that you will respond and to the scam, whatever the scam is, sucking you into something or getting you to give up your information or whatever. Just never respond. And if you get something that comes in, let's say your bank says whatever, respond to this, or you get a phone call says, oh, we're with Wells Fargo Bank, about this thing, we need you to just hang up, call the bank, hang up on them, call the bank, call the real people and say, is this happening? And they'll say, no, that's a scam. So if for example, somebody says, I just paid $400 for PayPal, guess what? If I go to PayPal and look at my PayPal account, it doesn't exist there. So learn to ignore all of those things coming through Facebook, Twitter, email, phone calls. Just ignore them all. And if you're really worried about something, call directly to the actual company. It could be, call Amazon or contact your bank or whatever, but never respond. Never respond. And if you don't, I sail through pretty well, and I've got 10,000 people on Facebook and I'm not having issues. So, and I see people with just 10 people going, oh my God, all these things are happening. Like, don't pay attention to that nonsense. It's all garbage. It's all garbage. Save yourself from, driving yourself crazy and getting all freaked out about things that are really not a problem if you just ignored it, So that's a little piece of advice. And by the way, here's another thing you can do. On your phone, what you do is, especially on iPhone, you can put, I don't know about Androids, but on your iPhone, just put in that unknown callers, do not have unknown callers come through. Have them go straight to voicemail. That's what you do. All my unknown callers go straight to voicemail. Why? Because first of all, that takes away all the people trying to sell you crap. The bots coming through, it gets rid of crazy people. For me, it's crazy people calling me and want to leave me a message that I don't want to deal with this person. So they have to go to voicemail. And I can just click, most of them don't even leave a message because they're fake. But the ones that do, I can just blow them away. It's like, hi, Pat Brown, your business, gone. So only people I know can get through on my phone. That's the only ones that will ring. So if it's an unknown caller, they'll go straight to voicemail. Do that for yourself. Set up things that make your life easier, because there's a lot of junk out there, and it's all, half of it's, robots. So it's, they can send this crap out all the time. So, and it's a pain in the butt, but do that. Claim your offer. Oh yes, those things. I can't imagine the calls you get. Well, it's not as bad as you think. I said most of them just go straight to voicemail, and that gets rid of everybody. If somebody really wants to get hold of me, they can send me an email, and I'll read it, and I'll blow that away if you're a crazy person. Or if you leave them a message, and I might respond. But here's the thing: I rarely do call people back, so it's better to leave an email, as a calling is a lot of work. So unless it's somebody, like police department, media, somebody I know, if somebody has something really worthwhile to tell me, then I might call back. Otherwise, best to do it with email. Email's easier, and I'm more likely to respond. But yeah, just make your life a little bit easier, and don't get so freaked out over weird stuff, because you get it all. I get all this all the time. Hi, honey, or dear. Dear is very popular. It comes in from usually from India or Pakistan. They start out with dear, and then I liked your picture very much. And it's like, yeah, whatever. Just ignore it. Just ignore. I've got thousands of things I just ignore. If I paid attention, I'd lose my mind. So yeah. As far as stalker, I've had stalkers in my life. Yes, I have. Obviously, I'm in a position where I do get stalkers. Most of them have been female. Actually, all of them have been female. Interesting. I've had females who like me, and I've had females who want to be me. And Yeah, I've had some serious stalkers, but I've dealt with those. Yeah, so yeah, there's nothing you can do when you're in the public eye. Right. But I have, most. I mean, it hasn't happened very often, and I've been in the public eye for what? How old am I? Yeah, it's sad. It's almost 30 years. 30 years, and it's not that bad. You know what I mean, considering. But any stalker can be bad. Most of them are stalking through. Like I have one now who just sends me I must have 200 or 300 emails from her. She's psychotic. She's always pleasant. She's my friend, and I never responded once to her because I know she's psychotic, and but I see our stuff come in, and it just adds up. It's funny. What happens is if you have a iPad, they just stack the messages, so it's from the same person. So I only have like one message from her, but there's like 300 of them connected to it. But I just don't answer, because if I answered, then I might get her excited, and even more so, I mean, don't answer. So let's see. Aren't you nice? Let's see. I'm jealous now. The one who thinks your partner is working together. Let's see. And there are. I said the most serious one I ever had was a private investigative lady who wanted to be me, and when I was doing a lot of television work, and so I used to have some of the cases I was working on that publicly say I was working on them, and then she actually flew out to the police departments and claimed she was working with me, and then she threatened me, and she was armed. So she was an interesting one. I got her taken down, so I dealt with her I got her PI license removed, and I dealt with her through the police. So that's fun, but she was the worst one. So yeah. The world's a fun place, you got to have a sense of humor and not be too freaked out, especially I say when things aren't really there, when stuff is coming through the internet, remember, it isn't about you. They don't even know who you are. It's not like they're really going after you. It's just, they're sending out thousands and thousands of these things looking for somebody who will respond. So if it's a guy saying, hi, I think you're really pretty. I saw your Facebook photo and I think you're really pretty. And he looks like, I have that all the time. And there's some guy who's 22 years old. He's sending it out to thousands of people. And there are some women who are going to go, oh, wow, he thinks I'm pretty. And they'll answer. And then he's going to scam them in some way, shape or form. Just don't answer because it's not about you. They don't even know who you are. They do not. So that's to say, just put up a wall and just focus on people ignore the rest of it. So yeah, restraining orders are only useful as they don't restrain people from actually attacking you. They're just useful for a future proof that they were problematic. That's all. People often think that a piece of paper can stop somebody from harming you, and it does not. But and a lot of times it just pisses them off, and a lot of times it excites them. So have to be very careful when you do restraining orders to see if it actually does what you want it to do. But sometimes it's necessary just to put that in the legal system, just so you have proof that you had to have a restraining order against them. But it will not stop them from harming you. It's a piece of paper. That's all it is. It's a piece of paper. I would say check the profile if someone wants to be a Facebook friend. Often all their friends are girls. How about don't even waste your time? If you don't know them, don't waste your time. Now, here's what I do. Here's something else too. If somebody says, hey, Pat, hi, Pat, I want to be your Facebook friend. I don't answer. The person I will answer has to have something personal to say to me, something specific. Like they might say, hi, Pat, I'm a subscriber of yours on YouTube. I really love this particular show you did. I wanted to ask you a question, or I'd like to be a Facebook friend because I really love these 3 shows. They actually know who I am. But if somebody just says, hey, Pat, I want to be your friend, I don't know who you are, and I'm not going to waste my time with you. So it has to be a personal message that makes sense to me. So if somebody is contacting you, it shouldn't be somebody who doesn't know you or know who you are or what you're about. Then they're just creepy people. Don't waste your time with them. They're not worth it. Just stay with your friends. If somebody says, hi, so-and-so, hi, I'm a friend of your friend, so-and-so. We met the other day at work, and she knows what the workplace is. And then we were discussing, she's talking about you going on this trip to such and such a place. Okay, this is a lot of information that only somebody would know. Then you might say, okay, I'm willing to have a chat with you. But be sure that they're real people who really know you, and they're not just people looking for whatever they're looking for. I mean, I know a lot of people think they're going to date through Facebook. All that kind of crap. It's a risky business. So if I don't know you, I don't know you. That's exactly correct. That's exactly correct. Approximately, I think maybe it's less than it used to be. I have 2 Facebook accounts. That's why. Actually, I have 3. But so yeah, one was once upon a time, my first account got to 5,000, and then I couldn't add more people, so I started a criminal profiler Pat Brown account. So that's the second one, Pat Brown, criminal profiler Pat Brown, and that one then got whatever it got. I haven't really been ignoring people lately, so I haven't been adding people, and some people have left, so maybe it's down to 8,000 or something. I don't know. It was business, because I was on television for so many years. So, yeah, this is exactly it. Don't answer the call. Send them to voicemail. Explain yourself, and I'll decide if I call back. Right now, mind you, one of the reasons you want to have unknown callers is that a lot of people won't answer the phone at all. And if you're calling your friends, it gets really annoying when they never answer the phone. They only will you're calling them and they're never available, but you're supposed to answer the phone and be available to them. So, I mean, to me, it's fair play. If somebody calls you, you should be willing to answer the phone if they're your friend. You can always say, I'm busy now. Can I call you back? That's fine. But it's not okay never to answer your phone and just find, okay, I'm driving the car, so I'll call my friend because now I don't have anything else to do. I'm not disturbed now. Well, then when you call your friend, you may be disturbing them unless they're driving their car, So, to me, if it's your friends, you should answer, at least try. And if it's somebody you don't know, send them off to voicemail, find out what they're about, and see if they're worth responding to. Yeah. So, but, follow, like, all these things where you click people and, put little hearts and shit. I do go to friends' pages and I make comments on when they put up something interesting. I have commented. I do that, and I have liked some things when it's somebody I know, not when it's a complete freaking stranger. So anyway, well, I was a model when I was 19, not anymore, and I don't think my artwork is going to be like people aren't going to hound me for that. So again, don't worry. My opinion is worry about the things that make sense to worry about and protecting yourself. And that could be getting involved with people who you shouldn't get involved with. That is more concerning to me than you're worrying about all kinds of things on the internet that just don't actually touch you unless you let it touch you. Just don't let it touch you. Just ignore it. Ignore it. So anyway, all right. So this weekend, yes, I'm going to do the Freeway Phantom. They murdered 6 African American girls back a long time ago. It was at the 70s. It was in the 70s. It's got some really fascinating elements to the case, which is why I want to discuss it. But I will send over a link tomorrow. I'll be doing it on Saturday, I believe, at 3 p.m. But I'll send over a link to a couple of different items that you can look at if you want to look at that before the show. But it's kind of a fascinating case, and there's some interesting suspects. Well, I'll discuss the suspects, who I think it most likely is, and there's a lot of issues surrounding the case, but it's a fascinating series. It's clearly a serial killer, and I think the youngest girl was 10, oldest girl I think was 18, 19, but and what's interesting about the case is that a lot of times the girls were just walking to the store to pick up, just literally going a block to the store and just disappearing. So it's a very creepy case, very creepy case, and very, very sad. And no one was ever convicted. So hopefully we'll see you there for that. And I am going to get I think I'm going to get my Cleopatra thing out, next Cleopatra show out tomorrow. So hopefully. Anyway, that's it for tonight. I'll use my usual rants and whatever I go on these hangouts, but I appreciate you being here, and always fun to be here with you guys. But if you call me, you're going to go to voicemail. So I'll see you soon. Bye.